What's the most dangerous time you were accused of crying wolf? I tried to warn a beach resort about an imminent shark attack, and they accused me of being a paranoid tourist trying to ruin their business. The ocean turned wrong in seconds that Saturday afternoon when pelicans started dive-bombing the water 50 yards from shore, and baitfish erupted from the surface like silver popcorn. After 12 years studying great whites for the government, I knew exactly what those signs meant. The 40 people splashing in the waves had maybe 10 minutes before death arrived. I rocketed out of the water so fast I left my sunglasses floating behind. Iris barely had time to look up from her book before I was dragging her toward the lifeguard station where two bronzed college kids were comparing their Friday night conquests. Clear the water now, there's a predator coming, I gasped, showing them my federal marine biologist badge with shaking hands. They laughed and one actually said, "Chill out, lady, dolphins aren't dangerous," while death circled closer to the swimmers. "Call your manager right now," I demanded. The blonde one rolled his eyes but grabbed his radio probably just to shut me up. The manager arrived in his ridiculous beachside suit, already looking annoyed at being pulled from whatever was more important than 40 lives. "My guards say you're claiming there's a shark, but our $1 million detection system shows nothing," he said, crossing his arms. Behind him, the feeding frenzy was getting worse with bigger shadows joining the baitfish massacre. "Your system won't detect hunting patterns until it's too late, but those birds and fish mean a great white is moving into your swimming area," I said. The darkness was sliding closer beneath the surface. He actually pulled out his phone and waved it in my face, showing some app with green dots. "See these sensors? They're linked to underwater sonar that covers every inch of our beach," he said with total confidence. "There's absolutely nothing out there." The water had developed that oily sheen that sharks create when they're thrashing through schools of fish. The pelicans were diving in that specific pattern I'd only seen when great whites were feeding. "That slick forming 30 yards from your swimmers means something huge is hunting down there," I said, pointing at the telltale signs. "Those birds are following a hunting pattern." He glanced at the water for half a second, then back at his app. "Lady, this technology cost more than your house and it says you're wrong." The distinct copper smell of blood was starting to mix with the salt air. I could see dark shapes like torpedoes circling beneath the surface. "Sweetheart, I've been running beaches for 20 years, he said. "I know when someone's trying to cause panic for attention." The water was boiling now, maybe 30 yards from where kids were doing handstands. "You're about to watch children get torn apart because you won't listen to someone who studies these animals for a living," I said, already backing away. "Security can escort you out if you keep disturbing our guests with this Shark Week nonsense," he called after me, but I was already running. I hit the Coast Guard emergency number on my phone while sprinting up the beach. I told them exactly where the attack was about to happen and begged them to get here fast. Behind me, the beach suddenly exploded with lifeguard whistles shrieking. Voices screamed, "Everybody out of the water now!" Iris caught up as I finished the call. We could see the guards had gone from lazy to frantic in seconds after getting the Coast Guard's emergency alert. The dorsal fin erupted through the swimming area just as the last family scrambled onto sand. 16 feet of prehistoric fury breached completely out of the water where kids had been playing 30 seconds earlier. It crashed down in an explosion that knocked people off their feet, while parents clutched their children watching the monster thrash through empty water where dozens had been swimming moments before. Parents snatched screaming children while teenagers abandoned their phones to sprint up the beach, and the shark kept circling back angrier each time it found nothing but empty water where prey should have been. The manager stood frozen watching his worst nightmare unfold, except nobody was dying because my call had given them just enough warning. The Coast Guard cutter screamed up 10 minutes later, and the officer found me on the beach after checking that everyone was safe. "Your call saved at least 3 lives today because that thing hit right where the kids were swimming," he said, watching the massive shark still prowling the shallows. "Almost didn't make it because the manager thought I was trying to ruin his business," I told him. The manager finally walked over looking like he'd aged a decade. "I should have listened to you," he mumbled, staring at the water. "I'm sorry." Iris grabbed my hand and we headed for the parking lot. "Maybe hire someone who knows about sharks instead of relying on machines that only detect them when it's too late," she called back. 6 months later, a marine biologist friend told me that resort hired her for weekend monitoring. Apparently their insurance company saw the Coast Guard report about how close they'd come to a massacre.